Hello and welcome to the Lynnwood Times interview. My name is Keenan Briscoe, senior reporter with the Lynnwood Times, and joining me today is new Edmonds Mayor Mike Rosen.
Keenan, nice to meet you, and thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for joining.
I really appreciate your interest in Edmonds and in their mayor.
So, Mayor Rosen, you officially assumed office on the 1st of January. It's now the 10th. So what did those first 10 days look like?
Nothing like you would imagine when you're running for office. It's a big city with several hundred employees. We have 14 boards and commissions, a lot going on, and so a lot of it is listening to understand where everybody is and what are sort of the burning fires. I'm into, when somebody elects you, you're into it for 1,461 days. So I now only have 1,451 days to get moving. So I also feel the pressure of time in terms of moving forward on the kinds of issues we have to face.
And during your campaign kickoff, you mentioned your priorities are money and staffing, to name a few. So let's talk money first. What's your strategy to bolster or generate revenue in the city?
So we are not, in many cases, many of the issues that are facing Edmonds are not unique to Edmonds. COVID took its toll. Nobody would have projected the kind of inflation that we've been facing. So even really good projections of, here's what we've been paying for this, and that it would go up that fast. We also, and all this happened before me, right? But then there's, you want to pay employees a competitive wage, and so bringing that into adjustment as all this goes up. So you find yourself falling behind, and then cities only have so many revenue streams, and I think there's some confusion in the public, like they get their property tax bill and go, what's up with the city? And the reality is only 14% of that is actually going to the city, because rightfully people said, yeah, we want better schools, yeah, we want better transportation. So we have this reality of revenues are not keeping up with costs, and you can save only so much. But the reality is also you want the police to show up if there's a problem. You want the medics to show up if there's a health issue. You want the fire guys to show up and put out fires if something's burning, and you want the roads to work, and you want water to show up and then go away when you're done with it. So a long way of saying that it's to fund those, you need multiple sources, and we are going to have to save what we can. I think we have to get back to basics. Government exists for very specific reasons. Let's get back to those basics. I'm a big fan of budgeting by priorities, so it's just like at home. Here's how much money you have. Here's what we absolutely positively have to provide. Got to make sure people are safe. Got to make sure they have water. Got to make sure they can get around. And then if there is money left, then of those, what are the things that we want to have? And in the past, I've had to look at clients and sort of say the words, you can have anything you want, you just can't have everything you want. And I think running a city is very much the same. So we have to find new revenue streams, and that's a conversation we're going to have with the public about different ways to do that. And then we also have to save what we can and get back to basics.
This is your obviously first time as mayor, but your first time really running for office. So what was that like, being a one-time run, one-time win, and can you paint a portrait of where you were and what you were thinking when you heard the results?
And I appreciate you saying it that way as opposed to what were you thinking? This was not on my radar back when this first came up. I was retired, and I was very happily retired. I hadn't had a bad day since I retired. And when I started seeing what was going on nationally with the dysfunction, which continues to go on nationally, and the conversations were more about left and right than doing what's right, and that troubled me. And there was all this divisiveness going on, and that really troubled me. And I thought, not here, not in the Northwest. We're better than that. And we weren't better than that. It came to the Northwest, and it came to Edmonds, and we learned how to be sort of disrespectful and start building tribes, right? And then COVID came, And now we can be disrespectful without looking at each other. And then tribalism took on an even stronger approach to it. So that troubled me. And I totally watched it happen. And in my heart, I believe that if I lined up everybody in Edmonds right outside here and said, okay, raise your hand if you think government has nailed it. Like, no, this is it. This is what we want. I don't think anybody's going to raise their hand. So there was that. I believe that there is a critical mass that says, no, not here, not today, not in Edmonds. I understand there are going to be those people who are going to try to force us apart. We don't buy into it. So that was part of it. Another is that I believe people should have a meaningful participation in decisions that impact them. And we are an incredibly diverse community. And I don't tend to like that term because we tend to put it in the category of this, but we are diverse in that way. But we also have 130 languages in our public school system. We have people who are old and young, people with kids, without kids, people who are single, married, people with money, without money, people who have cognitive challenges, physical challenges, live in different environments. We are very diverse. And the way government has typically worked is if you want to talk to the policymakers, come down on a Tuesday at 7 o'clock to this building. And now we do recognize that public embarrassment and public speaking is probably one of the top 5 fears you have. So please stand at that podium. We're going to give you 3 minutes and there are going to be 3 flashing lights in front of you. And there are going to be 7 people up there who have been told not to give you much expression or feedback, and they won't respond to you if you ask a question, and ignore the 7 cameras and go. And that's how government typically does public engagement, engages people in decisions that impact their lives. That's wrong. So we need to make sure that people know what's going on, that they have an opportunity to participate that is convenient and makes sense to them, that we actually listen to them and it's considered and they understand that they understand how the decision will be made, and we need to get better at it. So that was another thing that trusted me. I talked about the 4 pillars of the public, the council, the mayor, and the staff. And in Edmonds, that got pretty dysfunctional. And I felt like I could have an impact on that as well. So those were the kinds, I mean, I can go down the list. I had a list of 70 things that kept me up at night. But those were the kinds of things that I saw, and I thought, at any other time, I don't know that I would run for mayor. Like I said, I was happily retired. But those problems really troubled me, and I felt like I think I can fix those.
You were speaking about your retirement, and before you retired, you were working for an integrated communication firm. How has your experience working as managing principal at this firm given you, if so, a unique perspective on fostering community and civic engagement with your residents?
So the firm, I was part owner and managing principal, as you mentioned, and we, when I joined, there were 6 people, and then we grew to about 100. We had offices in 7 states. So a city, employees over 100. They work in multiple buildings. Probably over 50% of the work we did was for government. So we were the people they called when they couldn't do it, right? Or they needed help doing it, or needing help figuring it out. So I understood government procedure and processes. I knew I could help government solve problems because that's who they called me to do it. Public engagement we did market research because I think people could make good decisions if they have good information. We did the public engagement and public involvement that government does for really big projects. And then we also help build programs and implement programs that help people make and make decisions that make their lives better, the environment better, health better, transportation better. So all of those things sort of align perfectly with, in my opinion, with the skills and the needs of a community.
It's just a fun fact for our viewers who don't know, you used to be a filmmaker, a documentary filmmaker, I think, and I believe you won some awards for your filmmaking. So yeah. I'm just curious, how did you get into filmmaking, and do you have a particular memory that stands out when
I
you...
have several. I got my first job in television when I was a junior in high school. And And then what brought me out to the Northwest was a job at Cairo, first working in news, and then when they started a documentary unit, I became the producer of that, and also managed their public affairs programming. My wife and I, that was documentaries, and those were public affairs kinds of documentaries. And then my wife, who worked at Cairo and then worked at Como, also started doing, for the people who have been in the region for a while, her first job was with JP Patches. And at that point, people usually stop listening to me.
The clown?
The clown.
Oh.
So she and I have done 7 nature and wildlife documentaries, which have been syndicated around this country and several other countries, and in a couple thousand schools and libraries. And we have been very fortunate to win several hundred of national and international awards, including a Peabody and that kind of stuff. So we have felt very charmed in the kinds of experience. So I'll give you a couple of experiences, since that's what you asked. I was almost killed by Mount St. Helens. But the story I was going to tell you was we were one of our documentaries was on elephants, rhinos, and mountain gorillas. So we were in Rwanda to do the mountain gorillas, and the gorillas. So we were at camp. Actually, we camped at Diane Fossey's camp, which is at 10,000 feet, and then the gorillas are up from there. And it is what you would imagine. Your feet never touch the ground because it's jungle, and there are, you cover yourself because of the thickets. Everything can scratch you, and you're literally with a machete bushwhacking through.
Wow.
And
did you have a safari hat and everything?
I looked apart as much as I could. So we're up there sucking air, and there is a tracker, and we were going after the research group, as opposed to, there are tourist groups that are much more acclimated. So this is the research group. And so these guys, the trackers, are bushwhacking, and we are at 10,000 feet, and we're all sucking air. And you can smell them, you can hear them. And then at one point I looked to Sharon and said, we're gonna have to call this thing Butts of Nature, because they just, you just get a glimpse as they're going back into the bush. So we're sitting up there, and your feet, like I said, never touch the ground. We're resting, and we're sort of on a slope like this, and suddenly, through the brush comes a silverback. So right there, this monster 400-pound gorilla, and he walks up to me and climbs on my lap, puts his head in the lens, right into the lens, and sits there for 4.5 minutes.
Wow.
And then turns around and walks away. So while he's on me, and they tell you, like, never make eye contact, never get close, right? Never touch them. And here's this gorilla. So I look over at Sharon, who's my wife and my best friend, who also was the producer. First words out of her mouth, "Are you rolling?" Which of course I was. So that was a good trip. But we've had a ton of those kinds of experience. I don't know if you know that hippos kill more people than all other animals. So we were on the Zambezi, and anyway, hippo took a huge bite out of my canoe and tipped us over.
Oh,
and
wow.
that kind of stuff. So that was close. So I've had a few of those kinds of experiences with critters.
Pretty embedded in the Edmonds community for years now, with the planning board, Edmonds Chamber, Waterfront Center, where we are now. Has your involvement in any of these departments granted you a unique perspective on how they either operate internally or either influence the way that you view the city at large?
Yes. This community, there's amazing people walking around this town. I believe that volunteerism is the secret sauce of this country, and the people walking around this city and the experiences they've had and the sandboxes they've played in, it's, I swear, if we said, here's a problem, put a group of people in the room and say, hey, can you all help us with this? I think their first question is going to be, what do you want us to do after lunch? And that is what I've seen through these kinds of experiences. So Edmonds Center for the Arts, that was a blank piece of paper, right? There were a group of people, this was way before my time, group of people who said, it would be great, and they, from a blank piece of paper, created this, this jewel in the city of Edmonds. And before they were done, the economy tanked. And those people said, yeah, let's just run off this cliff. They were bold and got things done. The building we're sitting in is another example of that, where the community, a lot of private, public collaboration, but mostly private, where they came together and said, you know what this community needs? Let's do that. And if you look at all the volunteer organizations that go on, in terms of food insecurity and the other kinds of issues that we have, the volunteerism that goes on here is just so darn inspiring. So working on the planning board and seeing, how and understanding how this city makes decisions and sort of guides its path to the future and the impact of the quality of life of that, and then experiencing, the business community through sort of the volunteer, and I ran a business, but the Chamber of Commerce, and so they absolutely impacted me and inspired me, and continue to. I love this place.
So getting away from your role as mayor and your volunteerism, do you have any hobbies, especially now that you're retired? Like, what do you do when you're not in the mayoral office?
I do like photography, and my wife and I love to travel. And when we do, we tend to go to places with big critters. We refer to all of our documentaries, not all of them, but many of the documentaries were around. We call them CMVs, charismatic megavertebrates. So elephants, rhinos, mountain gorillas. We did whales, wolves, and anyway, so a lot of that. And so when we vacation, we tend to go to places like that, except for when it's cold, dark, and winter, and then we try to get within 20 degrees of the equator. So travel, photography are sort of, that's where I get centered. And here in the Northwest, you can have fresh water, salt water, go either direction, get mountains. You can be in a rainforest in 2.5 hours. You can be in desert in 2.5 hours. We live in this, how lucky are we? People are starting to figure that out.
What are you looking for the most for as far as the future of Edmonds goes? And I mean this so far as capital projects or state of the city. We talked about that earlier. What are you looking forward to most out of these?
Well, at one point when I was running, and I thought, the perfect yard sign for me would be make Edmonds government boring again. So that is actually a metric that I think is real. That where we have so much trust in government and the people we elect, that we don't have to get angry, we don't have to scream. So that is a destination for me, that there is so much trust that, I'm going to weigh in, but I also trust the decision. So that's one. As a mayor, you sort of have your foot in two places at the same time. There's there's the roads. The roads got to work. You got to be able to move people and goods. There's the water. We want it to show up and go away. We have to make sure you are safe against crime or a health crisis. So there's the today problems or issues that government owes its citizens. At the same time, we are doing things that are going to have an impact, 30 years from now. I'm going to be dead. So another thing I want to do is make sure that we are engaging the community in those kinds of decisions for a future that is theirs. We are really temporary stewards of this place. And if I lined everybody up and said, could you live somewhere else if you really wanted to? I think everybody would say yes. And if I said, tell me why you choose Edmonds, I think there would be a huge overlap in the reasons. So that to me is I also believe many things. I believe that vision unites us. And that to me is that, so we all choose this place for most of the same reasons. Let's not screw that up. Now, what else can we improve, and how do we create a future, or make sure we create a foundation for a future that is yours, and making sure that those people are involved. So that is a destination. So I'm not in this because I want a bridge named after me, or that I want a specific bridge. It is, can we put trust back in government? Can we make the four pillars work tightly together? Can we have a good decision-making process so we aren't going at it in some of the ways I think sometimes decision-making can be derailed, and that we have some core values, that we aren't going to screw this place up, but we also understand that there were people before us and there are going to be people after us, and let's make sure that we're sort of serving those generations. So there is a long list of things we need.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor Rosen. It was a pleasure talking to you and getting to know you a little bit more, and Edmonds is in good hands.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored, and I really do appreciate the conversation. Thanks for the interest.